Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. So guys, this video was supposed to be a very simple clump separation video because a lot of people have been asking me to make a video on how to separate succulents when they are in a clump. Now this was supposed to be a very simple video. Everything was going as per plan, but unfortunately there was a small mishap that happened during the separation and propagation of this clump. But again, I thought why not just share this with you because this can be a very good learning for you guys as well. Because I've often been talking about this, that it's very important that after you cut your succulent, you have to let it callus and you have to keep it in a place wherein the cut part doesn't come in contact with any water or moisture. So by the end of this video, you will be able to understand how this small little mistake can turn out to be fatal for your succulent. Now talking about the clump separation, that is what this video was supposed to be. Now as you can see over here, the clump is very congested. It's in a very tight spot because this particular clump was receiving a good amount of morning direct sunlight. You can see how congested and how compact it is. Now if you notice over here, the reason why it is better to separate such clumps is because you can see there is not much space for the succulent to grow, and as you can see, a lot of the lower leaves are starting to turn yellow and they're drying up. Now it's very important before you start opening up your clump or before you start to separate your clump, it's very important that you first clean out all the dry and the yellow leaves. So when you try to clean out all these yellow and dry leaves, you will be able to get a clear picture or a better picture where exactly you want to separate it. Otherwise it's going to be very difficult, and usually when you try to snap it apart, a lot of times the succulent might just break into half. Now over here, as you can see, I have tried and cleared out all the dry leaves, and now it gives me a much better view of how the stem tends to look. Now obviously the stem has completely dried out. As I said, it was very compact. There was not much space for the clump to grow. Even though the clump is not of a very good size, it is a very small clump, but still it wants to grow and the space was very congested. Hence it was finding it very difficult, and hence this clump started to lose out a lot of leaves. A lot of the lower leaves started to turn yellow, not because of overwatering, because of lack of space. So this is just like a survival mode of a clump. So what it tends to do is, because it needs more space, it will start getting rid of the lower leaves, and the lower leaves will start drying out much faster. This is what happens in nature as well, because there is nobody to separate the clumps. So in nature as well, this is how they tend to work. They tend to drop off all of their lower leaves so that they can make a little bit more space for the new growth. So guys, over here, as you can see, I have tried to get rid of as much as dry leaves as I could, and now I'm able to see a good part of the stem, which will later on start to have aerial roots. So by the end of the video, I will also talk a little bit in detail about how you can get a little bit extra space of that stem, because as you can see, this clump was very congested. There was hardly any stem. Usually when we tend to do a stem cutting, we take a larger piece of stem, but in this case the mass of stem is very less. We do not have a lot to work with the stem, but I will talk about it in the later part of the video. By the end of the video, you'll be able to understand how you can work and get a little bit more piece of the stem. So coming back to the clump separation, as you can see, it was successful. I have successfully separated them. They are no longer congested. They are now individual succulents. So far everything was going very fine. You can see all of them are looking very healthy. All the dry leaves have been cleaned, all the yellow leaves have been discarded, and it looks all good. So the next step for me over here was to callus. Now as you all know, during the monsoon season, I do not keep my succulents out to callus. I place them indoor. So this is where I made the biggest mistake. This time I did not place my succulents to callus indoor because I was noticing that it hasn't rained for quite some time. It's been almost 5 to 6 days. It has been very sunny, very bright, and I thought it's not going to rain anymore. I probably thought the climate has changed. It's not going to rain. It's winters now, and possibly it won't rain. And that is the biggest mistake what I did. I was very confident about the climate. I kind of underestimated the climate, and that was something that I miscalculated it, and that's where the problem happened. Now as soon as I kept my succulents to callus near the windowsill, again they were covered with the roof, so there was no chance that that the rainwater will fall on them, but unfortunately, I assume when it rained in the night, it might have been very windy and the wind might have carried a lot of water vapor which might have landed on these cuttings. Now, I had done the cuttings early evening, so they were not completely calloused. I'm sure they were very fresh. The cuts were very fresh. They were open and the water vapor came in contact. Now, luckily, the best thing what happened over here is two of the cuttings were right at the back. Only one of the cutting was right at the edge of the windowsill. So that's the one that got affected. You can see this one was doing quite well, but the one that was right ahead, which is this one, as you can see, it has started to rot. You can see there is a lot of yellowing of leaves, which indicates that the succulent did come in contact with water. You can see a lot of yellow leaves, and this is where it started to rot. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to save this particular succulent because it's completely gone. The rot has already started. Now, this is the reason why I wanted to specifically include this part. Unfortunately for me, I'm losing this succulent, but the good part is that I'm able to educate you guys why is it so important for a succulent to callus, and during the period of callus, why it shouldn't come in contact with any water or moisture. Because in every other video of mine, I have always been very specific about this, that you have to keep your freshly cut succulent in a dry place until it tends to callus, because if the cuts are open, if it comes in contact with water, it will rot. So probably this is the best example. This is the best live example, as you can see what exactly happens. And unfortunately, even the leaves cannot be propagated, because you can see the leaves are transparent and yellow. They cannot be propagated or they will not produce any pulp. Thankfully, the other two cut succulents are doing quite well because they were right at the back. The water vapor did not land up on them and they have been doing quite well. There is no rot on them. Thankfully, both of these guys are doing quite well. So the next clip that you're going to be seeing is almost 6 to 7 days after I have done the clump separation. Over here, as you can see, after 7 days, the succulent is doing quite well. Now, remember I said I'm going to talk a little bit in detail about what you can do if you do not have a good piece of stem. Over here, as you can see, this part of stem is more than enough. If you have this size of stem, it's absolutely fine. You do not need to do anything else. It will start to root. As you can see, it has already started to put out aerial roots. You can see there are small little fine pink roots that have started to come up. So it has already started to aerial root, and this possibly took around 7 days for it to start to have aerial roots. So this is doing pretty well. If you have this size of stem, it's absolutely fine. You do not need to get more part of the stem. This is absolutely fine. But what if you do not have a lot of stem? Because here, as you can see, again, this stem is also enough for the succulent to start to root. So let's say that you want a little bit more piece of the stem to be exposed. Then what you can do is you have to be extremely careful, because you can use these leaves for leaf propagation. So you have to ensure that you very gently pluck the leaves. As you can see over here how I'm doing it, very gently try to separate the leaves from the stem, because these leaves can then be propagated. If you're going to break them incorrectly, then they will not propagate. So as you can see, with a lot of detail, try to just separate it very carefully. Try to take out the entire leaf so that you have a clean cut of leaf. And once you get a good amount of the exposed stem, it's absolutely fine. You are done. You do not need to take a lot of leaves out of it. As we have spoken about this earlier, it's always better to have a larger piece of stem. But in this case, it's not going to work out really well, because if you want to have a larger piece of stem, you will have to take out a lot of leaves. And because these particular succulents are really small, if you're going to take out a large amount of leaves, then there is hardly any leaves that are going to be left on this. So again, this is completely your call, whichever you feel works out. If you feel that you are satisfied with the amount of stem, then you need to stop plucking out leaves. Remember, do not try to pluck out a lot of leaves. Even this amount of stem is more than enough for the succulent to put out aerial roots. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep propagating.